Hello again, I'm Matthew Dixon, the CEO of eBay.io. Very pleased to be joining you once again on 3.0 TV to bring you the latest traders report. So we're going to be looking at the latest in crypto news and developments in the market. So in the news today, of course, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, are absolutely flying. We've had Cantor Fitzgerald arriving at a $3.5 billion Bitcoin deal. So looking to buy $3.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, that's 30,000 BTC. We've got a Bitcoin Darknet marketplace, Abacus, disappeared, and rumors are that's actually a takedown. This is really good news for the industry. It shows that some of the bad players have been taken out of the market, and it just shows that the marketplace is being cleaned up, and it's a really good sign for the cryptocurrency market. We've had US PPI figures. This is producer price inflation, come out way lower than expected. So they came out 0.0 today. That is telling you that inflation is not the problem that many people thought it was going to be. A lot of people thought with the Trump tariffs that inflation was going to be rising sharply because of rising prices. But in fact, the opposite is happening, and we're potentially going to be heading down the road towards deflation. Now, this potentially is actually very good for risk assets, and it may well be one of the reasons today why we're seeing risk assets rising sharply in value. Because if we do see inflation fully under control, in fact, even the risk of deflation down the line, then there's much more chance of basically money printing, QE, being reinstigated. If that happens, it means there's a lot more money washing around in the system, a lot more money that actually will flow into risk assets and pump risk asset prices even further. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing really healthy, buoyant market today. And we're seeing the Pump.Fun sale was extremely successful. They raised $500 million in just 12 minutes in their token pre-sale. So although the price did fall very sharply, I think it fell 55% throughout the rest of the day, but it was a very, very successful sale, raising $500 million. So let's just take a look at the actual charts themselves today and see where we are. So clearly, we've said that the cryptocurrency markets are flying. Here's Bitcoin, the view of Bitcoin. I think that this final leg up, we've had some sort of correction there, an ABC correction, which is basically counter trend. Then we go back towards with trend to new all-time highs here. We've got basically a wave one, wave two. Wave three is beyond 1.618. Now that's the minimum that I would normally expect for a wave three. Wave three is normally the largest, most extended, most powerful wave, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. We've seen a bit of a pullback that may actually be complete, and I think we still have another push higher to go. So I'm reasonably confident that we do have higher to go with Bitcoin and, of course, all the other risk assets and cryptocurrencies that not only follow, but actually a lot of the altcoins, actually, when Bitcoin's really flying, they actually are even more volatile to the upside. I mean, they're more volatile to both upside and downside, but if we're seeing Bitcoin, some serious Bitcoin upside with all this institutional buying, and I think we could have some sort of alt season where the alts really more than play catch up, but actually overtake in terms of percentage gains. So as I say, from this chart, it looks likely that we're going to see new all-time highs fairly soon with Bitcoin. We had a high of, I think we just touched 123,000. We dipped down a little bit. We're currently 119,600 and odd. I think that we'll soon see new all-time highs coming there. That may mean then we get some kind of pullback, but still possibility for new all-time highs once again. I looked at a heat map on CoinGlass, basically where there's buying in the market. And there are sales somewhere around the 126,000 area penciled in for the future, but there's still actually buying way higher up on the Bitcoin price, possibly up around the 150, 160,000. So there could be a big jump in price. And who would bet against that with the massive institutional interest that we've just heard with Cantor Fitzgerald and many, many others? We've seen Strategy also buying more Bitcoin. So really, really positive. Seen a massive jump as well in Ethereum, of course. Just a couple of slight warning signs. I wouldn't say that it's a real flashing red light, but just to be aware that we do have bearish divergence in place at the moment. But I don't count this as an actual signal until I see confirmation from another indicator. So at the moment, we're actually just seeing green candles to the upside, and that can actually continue. But it's only when we see this bearish divergence, which is where we have higher highs on price and corresponding lower highs on RSI, that uses an oscillator for this particular indicator. But until we see a red candle confirmation, there's no saying that this is going to stop. I mean, we can see that RSI actually peaked at a higher level back in March of this year. We're at a lower level now. That's actually part of the definition of this bearish divergence that we have. So there is room for more upside in RSI, but we must be getting somewhere near a potential bit of respite, at least in this upward price move. It's been very, very sharp since we had that Pectra upgrade, which happened again back in May of this year, the Pectra upgrade, which actually gave Ethereum a real boost in price there. We've seen some really positive movement as well with Solana today, massive movement to the upside. And again, following the all-time high that we had at 295, we had a corrective move to the downside, which looks as though it completed a wave four. So again, that's a correction downwards. So it looks as though the impulsive direction is to the upside. And so it looks as though wave four was complete at $95, 95.86 low there. And then we have a higher low. Obviously, we pushed up and then pulled back again, but a higher low, $126. And we're pushing quite impulsively again to the upside. So no knowing where this is going to stop. I mean, at worst, we'll see this as an ABC with a C wave probably equal to the magnitude of this A wave. So much higher still on the card. So I'm really bullish at the moment with Solana. So pretty bullish with most of the assets out there. I've done some analysis on my X, which is at MD Trade. I post analysis on there every day. I post quite a bit on Jasmy, basically because they have a massive following. There's a lot of enthusiasm behind this particular token, and it seems to have great utility. Again, we're in a similar position. I think that we're actually moving impulsively to the upside for the time being. I think we finished a small wave three at a small fractal, had a wave four down, and we're pushing impulsively up again. So again, probably quite a lot more upside to come there on Jasmy as well. Just finally, I will just touch, I think, on dollar index. We actually, when we got that weak inflation news out, obviously it means that that's potentially weaker for the dollar. And we got a big sell-off on the dollar immediately, but that's actually recovering quite sharply. And it's really interesting that this long-held parallel trend channel has really been adhered. It's been respected. But as soon as price touched that, it bounced higher. And even this weak PPI news today hasn't managed to really put any dent in the dollar that seems to be strengthening again at the moment. So for the time being, it's not hurting risk assets. Usually there's an inverse correlation, but for the time being, it's not hurting risk assets. So no need to worry. But if dollar were to appreciate much, much more, then I think there could be some potential pressure on risk assets. So much more I'd like to cover, but obviously our time's limited. So I look forward to catching up again with you early next week. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. Catch up again soon. Bye for now.